Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I am, as ever and always, your host, the Lore Runner, who has figured out why his mic is working now properly. Before we go any further, the first thing I want to say, because I always want to put news tidbits at the very beginning, is that's hysterical, Diesel Itch, is that some people, I've been getting an increasing amount of complaints lately about the fact that we have ads in our YouTube videos, most specifically the old YouTube stuff. The old channel, right? The Ruminations channel. And for some reason, people don't know this or don't understand this, so I want to be nice and overt and transparent about this. Those aren't mine. I don't monetize my videos. YouTube puts ads up on everything regardless of anything. So if you pull up rumination analysis on blank, what you are seeing is an ad from YouTube, not from me. Now, I know that sounds like duh, but I wanted to make this very clear because several people have been like, oh my god, this dude sucks. He's put ads up on his videos and they're like an hour long, so there's like 8 ads across the whole video and it's awful and he sucks. No, that's not me. I don't do that. I actually, just to really talk this through, every single time I upload a video, manually, I have to go in and manually demonetize each video I upload. It's a pain to do, and I have to do it for every single upload. They are off, hazardous. Now, YouTube is dumb and stupid, as usual, as anybody who knows anything about both YouTube and AdSense can tell you, but I just want to be nice and clear about that. Those aren't mine. Having said that, I've been thinking about turning ad revenue on. Hear me out for a second. As usual, this is me, being overt and obvious about it. Because you're probably thinking, why do you demonetize your videos? Well, there are 2 big reasons why I used to demonetize my videos. Reason number 1 is obvious. So there's not ads on my videos. Because I don't want ads on my videos. Now, obviously, that's not applicable anymore because the ads are showing up regardless. So that is no longer part of the equation. That brings us to reason number 2 why I wouldn't put up, ad revenue on that, because it was another layer of defense. This is like 6 to 8 years ago at this point, against the fact that people would be like, rah, we own this video that you put out because it has 30 seconds of an audio clip in it. Anybody who's been paying attention to anything knows that that defense doesn't work anymore. So I actually have no reason to not monetize my YouTube videos anymore. And that just occurred to me this morning because I was prepping. Every time before I hop onto Loreweek, I kind of run through all the things I'm talking about. I just kind of prep myself, get myself a little, rehearsal for what I want to talk about. And as I was rehearsing me informing people that I don't put ads in my videos, it just kind of clicked to me. I don't have any reason to do that anymore. I literally don't have a reason not to put ads up. Now, I'm not sure what it would take to actually go in and manually monetize every video. I really don't. I haven't looked into it in years upon years upon years. So, I'll think about it. I sincerely doubt that it'll actually help. If nothing else, my channel is set like 17 times. It's actually like 3 times. I had to put 3 separate settings to verify that, no, really, my channel is not for children. Anyways, those settings, by the way, are in completely separate places because YouTube. But as a result of that, I won't make ad money. Like, I will not make money off of YouTube. But if it pulls in like an extra $50 a month, that's my grocery trip, right? Like, that's a trip to the groceries. Well, that's not true. That's like half a trip to the groceries because I buy meat and fruit, but you get the point. Thank you, if and but. As always, I'll put that towards Ruiner. Thank you. Because, and I had a whole speech here planned, but I think I'll spare you. The long and the short of it is, ads don't really make money. Now, I know what you're thinking, but people make millions and billions off of ads. Ads make money by quantity. Um, Ads make money based on ridiculous amounts of clicks, views, and eyeballs, right? So if I was one of those channels, which I am not, which has millions of viewers and millions of subscribers, then yeah, I would totally make money. I don't. I get, on average, about 1,000 clicks per Star Trek video within a week. I don't track past the first week. And that's, you know, nice. It's minuscule. And that's, you know, pennies. Assuming I was to monetize it. But again, the thought at this point is what effectively boils down to why not? Because again, I actually don't have a reason not to monetize anymore. So I'll think about that some more. That would take time. Time I don't really have right now. Now, really quick, I got a donation, I got a sub from Tim and Ash, If and But, and Ginger Overseer. Thank you, all three of you, very, very much. I do appreciate your support, regardless of ad revenue. No, really, I do. I've told this story before, so I won't share it again, but the reason I hesitated so long about making this my full-time job was because I knew how little money I would make in ad revenue because I've studied that before and because I have a brain. It wasn't until, you know, direct donations and bits and subs and all that became a feasible thing that it actually became within the realm of possibility that I could live off of this. Sponsors. Oh, sorry. No. Tim and Ash, I got that for Wasteland 3. If and But was for Ruiner, and Ginger Overseer was for Bloodborne. I got all three of those. Okay, so that's the big thing I wanted to talk about, was the ad revenue thing. Let's talk about LoreCraft. Let's just get that out of the way. So, yeah, but I don't use Dollar Shave Club, and also they suck. Super Chat. I mean, Super Chat is basically just bits or direct donations. So I'll go ahead and explain before I get into LoreCraft. I'll go ahead and explain about why sponsors aren't a thing. How many times do you think a sponsor has reached out to my channel asking about doing a sponsorship video? Come guess. I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a hint. As of next month, by the way, we've been doing this for 11 years. How's that for a thought, by the way? 11 years. Like, I'm not the oldest YouTube channel out there, but I'm up there. I'm getting up there, at least as far as ones that are still current, still uploading. How long was it a full-time job? That would have been from about, I want to say 9 years ago? No, because it was one... No, I'm sorry, it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years. I mean, I'm not sure the exact month. So don't ask me, because I don't know. I could probably figure it out. You know what? Sure, let's figure it out. Ah! How long has it been? Because I know the exact video that I uploaded and where I was uploading it at when I started making this my full-time job. It's pretty much when I started streaming, too. Alright, so that would have been... There it is. Okay, it has been a little less than that. It has been 7 years, 6 months, and 10 days since I've been doing this for a living. Roughly. Do we have topics? Yeah, but I'm not putting them up. I do actually have topics today. So, how many times have I been approached for sponsors? I don't know if you can even see that. 0! No one has ever approached me in 11 years. Or 6.5 years. No one has ever approached me asking for me to sponsor something. Not once. To give a little bit of perspective on that, Lore Reloaded gets approached about 2 to 3 times a week. for people who want to sponsor him. Now, he actually says no to most of those because most of the sponsors who do this are basically not offering what it's worth. You know, here's $100, do a sponsored video. No, that's way too little, right? Now, that's pretty much the reason why I'm not doing sponsored videos. Although, if I'm being honest, there is another reason I don't do sponsored videos. The people who are willing to sponsor are not the people that I want to sponsor. If NordVPN came to me and said, hey, sponsor, I would say no, because NordVPN sucks. If Skillshare came to me and said, hey, sponsor, I would say no, because I don't know anything about Skillshare. If Dollar Shave Club came to me and said, hey, I would be like, why? Why would I sub to you monthly when I pay a pittance for what you offer in order to keep myself shaved? And by the way, I shave bi-weekly. So no. None of them offer anything I would either use and therefore could sponsor. And some of them are actively terrible. Like, you know, everyone says the Raid Shadow Legends joke. I've actually tried that game because I was curious. It sucks. So again, no. You get my point? Now you might say, well, you need to swallow your pride and take the money. That is a valid perspective. There is a certain point at which you swallow your pride and you just do it, right? 1 second. Daniel Dort for Metroid Dread. Thank you, Daniel, very, very much. As always. To be clear about this, and I want to be 100% clear about this, I actually have no judgment or shade to throw about the YouTubers who take those sponsors. You know why? Because YouTube sucks. Now I have to upload this VOD. YouTube can go to hell and has been actively going further and further out of their way for years at this point. I think we're into the 8-year range, somewhere along there. Maybe 7 years. It's been a while since YouTube has been trying to make the entire YouTube situation more and more creator hostile. And they've been doing this in dozens of different ways. Trust me, I mean, whatever you have heard, I assure you there are more methods by which YouTube has been utilizing. Subtle and gross both, in order to try and make it so that it is harder and harder to make money on YouTube. So I have no judgment for any of the YouTubers out there who push out sponsor videos, because that's how they pay the bills. Right? Yeah, this what they have been legitimately insidious about many things over the years. Thank you, Hediori, very much for that sub. Always appreciate. If you ever wonder why I say thank you each time, obviously it's a bit of a check and balance system, because it makes sure that you know that I got it and you know that I jotted it down. You know, I always say if I don't respond vocally. But it's also because I'm actually thankful for each and every single individual donation, sub, and bit that you people put towards me, because that's how I pay the bills. Speaking of which, you are awesome. Thank you. I was talking last week, 4th of July. It was actually July 3rd, but whatever. I actually took time, about 5 hours of my life, to just go and spend time with my family. What's funny is it wasn't planned, right? It was just kind of a, hey, you should come hang out. Okay. And that was pretty much my response, as I thought about it for a moment. I was like, okay, you know what? Sure. I'll spend time with my family. I've got a video to finish, but, you know, I don't get to see them all that often. It was a good visit. I got to spend some good time with them. Hang out with the niece. You know, all that fun stuff. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up, though, is I was talking to my stepdad, and he was just grinning from ear to ear as I was telling him what was going on in my job, mostly because my job is at the point where even though I am not streaming, I am solvent. I know I've said this before, and I know I've been jazzed about this before, but I don't care, because it's still insane that I am somehow still making money despite the fact that I'm not streaming. You are awesome. Ashlam, if you're going to use a VPN, use private internet access. They're probably the best professional VPN out there. I had to look up the name. That's why I pulled up my phone for a second there. Yeah, time without manual labor, because obviously every Tuesday I go over to help with the thing. This is my career, Nerd Picks, and I smile at the fact that you use that terminology, because it means you probably remember me defining those terms. It is insane, Larry. I mean, yes, granted, I am still pushing out videos. You know, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then every other Friday, a video still goes live. So, I mean, it's not like I'm producing nothing during this period of time. But still, the primary focus of my job, streaming, hasn't been happening for months at this point. Thank you, Exeem, very much. And by the way, yes, I know the LoreCraft video today hasn't gone live yet. It's because I haven't actually had time to make the thumbnails for Wrath and onwards. I will, don't worry. I'll do that later this afternoon. F14 Endwalker. You got it, Exene. Thank you. So that's why I'm not doing sponsored videos. Nobody who is willing to pay me. Like, there are companies and products and services that I'd be totally cool with sponsoring, because I actually endorse them. I've heard, how many of you, real question, how many of you have picked up something because I was plugging it? Maybe a game, maybe a service, maybe a console, maybe an MMO. Anybody? Honest question. Because that's who I'd sponsor. You dig? Oh, that Irish mustard. I actually had that on a burger just this morning, Ross. It's so good. It's so good. It works so well with the way I do my burgers. Today's burger, I actually ground up, so I chopped up a bunch of mushrooms, and I chopped up a bunch of Swiss, and mixed that into the ground beef when I was handling the beef and making the patties. And so it's basically a mushroom Swiss burger, and then with that mustard, oh, it works so well. Anyways, moving on. Sorry, I'm just roaming here at this point. Hey, salud, Valerian. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be that verbose because I'm embarrassed. But I get you. I get you. And now it's... Damn it, Michael. Hang on. We're done with donations. I thought it was free every time I get out. Thank you, Michael. What's the meat mix I use? Mostly I just use straight up beef. Unfortunately, no, Ross. My dealer's choice, you got it. Thank you. At this point, most of my... I did get to see some of GDQ. I actually plan to bring that up. I guess we could bring it up now. I did get to see some of GDQ, 2.8 million raised, which is amazing for an online event. That is SGDQ. I only got to see some of the runs, though. In fact, I actually bowed out of a couple. I had the chat up because the program I use to record footage happens to have the chat attached to it. So by default, I kind of had chat up most of the week. But yeah, no, I got to see a few of the runs. One of my favorite runs was actually the Mario 64 blindfold run, which was yesterday. Now, if that doesn't sound insane, I want to stress this for those of you not intimately familiar with these games. So there's like Ocarina of Time. Okay, that's impressive, but Ocarina of Time is what you call a contained world. Most of Ocarina of Time could be boiled down to cells, right? Like individual rooms. You have to solve this room, and then you have to solve this room, and you have to solve this room. What I mean by that is if you successfully solve room A and move on to room B, then you've reset your position, and it's much easier to play that by sound because you know where you are exactly. Mario 64 has rooms, but they're like this. You know, each stage is like this, and there's a tremendous amount of, I forget the gaming term of it, but real estate you can walk on, right? There's a tremendous amount of area that you can actually move around on. So being able to navigate this blindfold is absolute insanity. Oh, by the way, he also said a PB. By 1 second. Yeah, there's also variable movement speed. He doesn't have all of the tips. There's other things that make Ocarina of Time easier to do, because Ocarina of Time has static movement that will always be X distance and X direction from you, right? So you will be able to do this, and then this, and you'll always be in the exact same spot. Now, Mario 64 has a couple things like that, but for the most part, you have to memorize not only how to get to a spot, But then when you have screwed up, because this happened a few times, you have to memorize how to get back to a place where you know where it is, and then try the trick again, right? It is mind-blowingly insane to do a blindfold run of Mario 64. I cannot believe he accomplished it. By the way, this is a 70-star run, too. So yeah, that's absolute mind-bogglingly insane. I honestly encourage you to watch that run, if you watch none of the other runs. I saw a few other cool ones. I saw the Mario hack, Let's Quit the Game, or whatever it is. Let's Give Up. That's it, Let's Give Up. I saw, gosh, I don't remember what else. I can't remember anything right now, of course, because most of my time has been spent on LoreCraft. Transition. So I have finished Warlords of Draenor. In fact, I finished that yesterday. So, woo! Now, for those of you who don't know what that means that all that's left is Legion. Legion's the big one. Legion is the finale. Once I'm done with Legion, I'm done with the LoreCraft series. I have actually already done some of the hard part of the first episode, which is the scripting, and then audio recording, and then audio editing, and then audio mixing, which is when I add music and stuff to it. So, all of the hard part for the first episode has been done. All I need to do is capture footage for that. I'm not going to work on that today. I'm going to work on scripting for the rest of it. But I wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on where I'm at with the LoreCraft in general. Some of you are probably thinking in your head right now, oh, sweet, he'll be done by next week. No, I won't. Let me run some figures by you really quick here. So, one of the things I did, for various reasons, which I won't bore you with right now, is I made a version of the LoreCraft series that is the whole expansion baked into one video, right? Now, I'm just going to give you figures rather than make you guess, but if you want to guess how long each expansion is, feel free to. I'll give you a moment, because I got to blow my nose anyways. It's all right. Allergies. I'm sure most of you know how it is. Summer, right? All right, so Burning Crusade, first expansion, is 1 hour 35 minutes. That's the one that, as of this point, has already gone live. Wrath of the Lich King, the one that'll start going live today, is 1 hour and 14 minutes. Now I'm going to skip something here. Mists of Pandaria is 1 hour and 14 minutes. Now, here's the funny thing. Warlords of Draenor is 47 minutes. Now, that might not sound significant, but being almost 20 minutes shorter, but I think actually, sorry, that's 30 minutes short, isn't it? That really just says how little content there was in Warlords. But the reason this is relevant is because Legion has a lot of content. The first episode is literally just the setup episode. The second episode will be about artifacts, which may also be the episode about the Order Halls. That's either going to be 1 or 2 episodes. After we finished those 2 or 3 episodes, then we will be able to start talking about the actual zones. So yeah, there's going to be a fairly large... Legion's going to take me a minute, is what I'm trying to say, and I don't want to dismiss that. By the way, I skipped over Cataclysm on purpose, because Cataclysm is 3.5 hours. Funny story, some of you may or may not remember this. I actually severely thought about skipping Kata when I was first setting this up, because I knew it would be so much larger than everything else, and I knew what I was getting into. And, there you go. Proof positive. Thank you, Michael Vania, very much. I've put that towards Legend of Legaia. Anyways, that's where I'm at with LoreCraft. Once that's done, I do have a few other little bit of paperworky things to do. Hopefully the website will be, fixed by then, or rather the script will be fixed by then. And I've got to work on a couple of other things. Really quick, I got to finish pushing out the Parish video, which has been funded as of this point. And I've got to push out a couple of other things. But once that's all done, we'll be back to streaming. Don't worry, I'll be nice and open and obvious when I actually have a return to streaming date, because I'm looking forward to getting back to streaming. I don't know if you're looking forward to getting back to streaming, but I am. By the way, another little factoid. There are 81 episodes of the LoreCraft series as of the end of Warlords of Draenor. So that'll be happening for the next year or so. You know, because each one's going to go live every Sunday. All right, so that's LoreCraft. Oh yeah, we canceled all streaming. Yeah, we got to get back to the jank block. No, we're going straight back to jank. We're going straight back to Banjo-Tooie. It's the next game we're going to stream, and it's going to be wonderful. And I'm going to give it all the positives. It'll be a joyous occasion, especially since I haven't been playing video games for the last couple months. So I'm extremely out of practice. No, seriously, I haven't. I mean, I've been running around in WoW capturing footage, but that's not playing a game. You know? So I'm gonna suck, is what I'm trying to say. Moving on. So I talked about GDQ. Let's see, what else do we get? We got a What If trailer. For those of you not familiar with it, the MCU is pushing out an animated series, which is called What If, which is a form of Elseworlds, aka, you know, what if we change one thing, and now that one thing has changed, so what has happened as a consequence? It actually looks pretty cool, believe it or not. Oh yeah, I guess Black Widow came out. I'm not even familiar with that. I haven't been paying attention. Like, I know the ending, because someone spoiled that for me. Thanks for that. It's really strange, Zed Slayer. Hang on, let me check that. My last donation, or thing from me. Yeah, no, I got one from you, right here. Very strange. It even says dealer's choice. It's just like a minute ago. And by a minute, I mean a couple days. Anyways, thank you, Walker. And Zed Slayer, just for the hell of it. If you know what you want to put it towards Walker, please let me know. Loki, I have to admit, Loki is interesting in the fact that so far, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but so far Loki has been following a story arc that I have absolutely no interest in. But by all accounts, it's pretty good, and the fact that it's Hiddleston is probably a lot of the reason for that, so yay. But yeah, the What If got a trailer. Looks pretty rad. They're doing some cool ones. I kind of hope they do a couple more. If nothing else, we need to see Alligator. That's all I'm going to say. We need to see the Alligator. Bloodborne, you got it. Warcraft. So how many of you have played the Pandemic series of board games? I mean, I have, obviously. I love Pandemic. It's probably some of my favorite cooperative board games out there. There's a World of Warcraft version based specifically on Wrath of the Lich King, which is coming out soon. Now, this is kind of news. It's not super big news. It's kind of a little tidbit. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because Blizzard, and I'm saying that very specifically, in the past has been extremely picky about what they farm out their licenses for actual games. Oh, sure, they'll make Funko Pops and posters and cups and tennis rackets and whatever other nonsense they'll do. They'll do that until the cows come home. But Blizzard has always been very picky about allowing other people to make games, whether board or video, within the realm of their IPs. This is one of the first times in years that Active Blizzard has actually allowed such a thing to happen, and it makes me wonder if this is the beginning of a trend. And you're probably thinking, oh, that sucks. Well, it might not. For the same general reason that... Oh my god, I suddenly can't think of their names. The people who own 40K. I can't think of their names. Anyways, for the same reason that really likes to absolutely shove out wave after wave, Games Workshop, thank you, of license out game upon game upon game upon game, and as a result, we actually get some decent stuff periodically. That would be nice. Now, several people are pointing out the previous board games that they've pushed out, and yeah, this is obviously not new news. This is something that is just a recurring trend. We'll see if this goes anywhere. This is the only reason I'm even bringing up, because we'll see if this goes anywhere, because it seems to me that they're trying to license a little bit more than they have been, like at an escalating rate, which could be good, Games Workshop, or it could be incredibly bad. We'll see, I suppose. Speaking of incredibly bad, how many of you have heard about Assassin's Creed Infinity? I gotta read this quote for quote here. This is funny. Let me give you the synopsis. Assassin's Creed Infinity is supposed to be a eclectic oak game, which is weird. I'm not sure, like, do you play the oak, or are you fighting the oak, or is the stage like an oak? Like, the oak is a... I'm not actually sure which it is, but I'm going to pause in my discussion about Assassin's Creed to write that down very quick. I think the stage would make most sense, like you're playing around an eclectic oak, and that's why the stage is weird, you know? Like, there's just a lot of weird stuff you could do. Thank you, Eclectic, very much. As ever, I've jotted that down for Mage with a Gun, or whatever it's called. I need to look up the name of that later. And the Advance Wars Remaster and the Zelda block. And it's... Damn it, Shadow Machine. You're killing me. Thank you, Shadow Machine, very, very, very much. Always appreciate. Thank you. I put that towards the Zelda block. Assassin's Creed Infinity is supposed to be one Assassin's Creed game instead of 15. Let me explain that. Imagine if you pop into a game, and within that one game that you're loading, you select, okay, I want to play Unity, or I want to, I want to play France, the French Revolution, or I want to play the Pirates of the Caribbean area to jump into 4, or I want to play into the Italian Renaissance to play 2, right? That's the premise gameplay-wise. Okay, that's... So, there's already a problem with that, because Takoida says, well, that's just the collection, right? Kind of, but more unified than that. Imagine if it's the exact same game, just each area is a different level. So in other words, rather than having all of the different tech and abilities and movement of each of the different games, you have your one set of abilities and movement and tech and how climbing works and which items you get and which equipment you get and blah, blah, blah. It's one game. You're just going to different levels. With me? So, now hang on, Takota, I'm not done yet. Now, I used existing games as an example. That's because it's easier to do it that way. None of the existing games will be in there. This will all be new stuff. So, you will be able to select your stage, which will be your timeline, and then you jump between them by playing the one singular game. The way I described this to a friend of mine is, imagine if you hopped into Valhalla, because he'd played Valhalla, and then within Valhalla, you go to play the stage of Assassin's Creed 2, but the game you're playing is still Valhalla. Stuff like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to be honest, that already sounds kind of to me. It sounds a little bit MMO-y, it sounds a little bit live service-y, which brings us to the second point. This is intended to be the Assassin's Creed game, the one that they will keep up and continue to update for a long time and have players just playing it for forever because it's a live service game. It's a straight-up live service. They are trying to make this be the Assassin's Creed game you play, and the only Assassin's Creed game you play forever, and you keep buying the microtransactions and yada, yada, yada. Now, I could stop there. I could just cut that off, and you could just figure out whatever else you want to from that, because, yeah. But yeah, with those two pieces, I've already been shoved into negative interest. I'm going to try and explain why a little bit. I want you to imagine that you have the exact same gameplay in Assassin's Creed. Let me pull out 3 at random here. Assassin's Creed 1, 3, and Syndicate. Now, if you've played all 3 of those games, you're probably already seeing the problem here. Like, you probably already see why, just at the absolute baseline, just from a gameplay perspective, even if this wasn't live service garbage, you can already see why that's like, well, wait. Hang on. Thank you, Shikor, very much. Obliged and appreciate. Thank you. Because At that point, what you're doing is the stage design is going to have to be effectively uniform, because your move set is going to be uniform, because what you can do, because remember, one game is going to be uniform. That's ignoring things like actual gameplay, combat stuff, which would be relatively easy to smooth out. You know, a light attack, a heavy attack, a ranged attack, a special ability. That's not hard to standardize. But again, I picked those 3 games very specifically because Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 3, and Assassin's Creed Unity all have extremely different styles of movement. Never mind the different stuff you can do when you're hanging up, or when you're moving along the thing, or how you hide from people. So, now that is something that can be surmounted. That is a thing that it is possible to go ahead and overcome. But you can see how that's kind of going to reduce the overall enjoyment of the overall work, because, as von Falkenstein says, the thing they could do, which is to literally make it so that you have different gameplay in each area, they will never do. Like, there's no way, right? I'm sorry. That would be effectively, and I mean, to be reasonable, that would be insane, because that would effectively be making a different Assassin's Creed game, in terms of level design, in terms of movement, in terms of tech, in terms of abilities, and then doing that 5 or 6 times for a single game. That would actually be insane, even if we ignore the fact that this is live service garbage. Then we tack on the... So even just the gameplay is problematic. Then we tack on the fact that this is going to be live service garbage. I was doing a little bit of economic research recently, because it's me, and I was waiting for a render to finish. You ever heard of the 80-20 rule? I mean, I've talked about the 80-20 rule a bunch. The 80-20 rule is one of those weird mathematical things that just kind of fits reality more than it probably should. 80% of your stuff is produced by 20% of your source, and 20% of your stuff is produced by 80% of your source. That's what that means. I say that so generically because that applies almost universally. But in economic terms, it means 80% of your income comes from 20% of your viewer base, right? Or your player base, whatever. Would you believe it's actually closer to 2% for a lot of these companies? 80% of their income comes from 2% of their players. We've talked before about the idea of whales, but it's getting a little bit more distended. Like, the ratio is getting more and more over here, and it's getting crazy, to be completely blunt. Now, why am I bringing this up with regards to this? Honest question. Is anyone in chat interested in a live service Assassin's Creed game? I will not be raising my hands, because I am not. But I'm curious, legitimately, no judgment. Is anyone interested in that? So we got one. That's actually, to be completely honest, that's more than I thought we'd get, but that's okay. Again, no judgment. The reason I bring this up is because one of the comments I've heard a lot with regards to movies, shows, and games, especially games, is they'll look at some of the decisions these people are making, these companies are making, and think, why would they ever think that's a good idea? Nobody wants to play a live service Assassin's Creed game. That's the 80%, or rather the 98%. Now, this is a theory. I'm going to go and be open and overt about that. But I've noticed this trend more and more, that companies will do things that are alienating 98% of their player base because they don't care. Because 2% is all they care about. The 2% who pay the 80% of their income. So they're going to aim their focus, they're going to aim their gameplay and their shows and their movies and their books, their music, their marketing campaigns and their food design after the 2%, because the 2% is what shoves out so much of their money. Now, yeah, this is actually a stupid idea, especially long term, because it is making the biggest mistake all math people ever make, presuming that the current condition will always exist when you go out of your way to change the current condition. This is a very, very stupid thing at even the most base level. And I'm with you, Crazy Horse. Really. Really, really, really. So screw them. to be completely blunt. Just screw them. Yeah, that Dakota is quite correct. Even if you weren't going out of your way to massively change what you're doing, which you are, even if you were somehow just trying to stay super still and not change anything, it would still change. Because you don't have a total control of your environment. It is not a chicken of uniform size and density. There's a reason that joke exists. Yeah, so. Moving on. That's my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Infinity. Not only do I have negative interest from the gameplay aspect, because making that work is going to be hard, and making it good is going to be hard, but then you add on the live service thing and what they're going for, which is just even worse. And yeah, the problem with the quarterly report is what I call that, Tigzar. But I've been banging on about that way too much. I apologize, everyone. I know I talk about that way too much, but the problem of the quarterly report is such a plague on society. And the amount of things it affects is getting bigger, not smaller. I hate to point this out yet again, but water. Moving on. Let's get some neutral ideas out here, or neutral news. For those of you not aware, Sony had their State of Play. That's actually all I have to say about that. That's why this is neutral news. No offense to Sony, but their State of Play showed nothing. Nothing new, anyways. That being said, Deathloop still looks cool. But, I mean, it's looked cool for 2 years, so... nothing new, like I said. I have a feeling that they were expecting some stuff to be ready for that announcement, and it wasn't. Because the whole State of Play thing was like, it was bog standard. It was right up there with the Gearbox one. Hey, nothing. Ooh. Yeah, Sony exists. That's it's the dog thing, right? There's a dog going woof woof, so that you know that Sony still exists. They still exist. The end. What else we got here? I talked about that. I'll talk about Shadowlands in a second. I'm going to talk about WoW last, because there are some spoilers, and I do like to preface that stuff, but I will be bringing up the WoW stuff. I'm going to try really hard not to rant, and I'm going to fail at it. Moving on. Speaking of WoW, let's talk about Final Fantasy XIV. So Final Fantasy XIV is they had a little bit of a news tidbit. This was Thursday or Friday, I forget when exactly. I wasn't awake for it, but they pushed out a benchmark for Endwalker. I got a 15,000 at 4K, every graphics setting maxed. Flex. I'm not actually flexing though, as weird as that sounds. That's a relief, because I've been worried. Because I worry, because that's what I do, that I had screwed up making my computer. And no, my computer's amazing. This is actually, believe it or not, I don't have much to say about FF14. What I do want to talk about is 4K gaming. How many of you have ever actually played a video game in 4K? I suppose I should raise my hand on this one. Well, I was going to raise my hand, but then Unicorn Scotch interrupted me. Thanks! Very much. As always. What do you want to put that towards? Where's the streaming thing? There it is. There it is. Good for my stuff. 4K. So okay, all it means is larger resolution. It does require dealer's choice. You got it. All it means is larger resolution. So, obviously, you have to have a TV or monitor that supports 4K, and then it's larger. Now, I don't want to sound irritating, but I go ahead and consider me a 4K convert. Because I have now played video games in 4K, and it is actually really impressive. I bring this up because, obviously, the FF14 benchmark was in 4K, and it was the first time I had seen FF14 on this computer and on this monitor, and it was like, oh my god, this looks great. But if I'm being honest, I've already been spoiled on it for 3 other games, and I just wanted to share these really quick with you, if you'll forgive me. Game number 1 is World of Warcraft, because I have been recording my WoW footage in 4K. And yeah, no, you really, I mean, I can. How's this? Granted, I'm sitting like 4 feet from my monitor, but still. Playing WoW in 4K is actually legitimately mind-blowing. I don't know how else to put it. Obviously, I can't physically show you because you'd have to be sitting here and looking at the screen. But it's just like, oh my god. Oh, this looks incredible. And I don't know how else to describe that. So instead, I'll move on to my second game, which is Doom Eternal. Now, Doom Eternal is stupidly optimized, and of course I installed it and played it specifically to test the new setup and the new monitor. Unfortunately, as I recently mentioned, I legitimately cannot describe to you what Doom Eternal is like with max graphics on a death machine like my nuclear submarine is here on this monitor. It is so insanely smooth and huge and detailed that it is actually legitimately mind-boggling, and I was just blown away by it. I have actually, this is not a joke, I have invited friends over to sit down at my computer and play Doom Eternal on my setup, just so they can appreciate that. But hear me out. Hear me out. Probably 0, but I usually have HDR off because I don't actually care for it. But yes, actually it does have HDR. It has an HDR mode. I usually set it into low latency mode for obvious reasons. That then leads me to the fourth actually, and final game that I've really been playing in 4K. Stardew Valley. Hear me out. How many of you have played Stardew Valley? Because only the people who've played it are really going to get this. Now, in Stardew Valley, you've got your screen, and you're walking around on your farm and all that fun stuff. But the thing is, when you have it set to 4K, it doesn't stretch, right? It doesn't stretch it out. Instead, what it does is it increases your viewing distance. So rather than seeing this tiny little thing zoomed out, like magnified or stretched out, instead you're just seeing a substantially larger area. So, for those of you who have played Stardew Valley, to give you a direct comparison, I can see basically the entire farm from any point in the farm. And it's awesome. Like, yeah, basically it's zooming the camera out effectively. And yeah, it legitimately has great use of the screen space. It's awesome. And that's sad, but so far that's the game that I've been most impressed with 4K gaming is Stardew Valley, because I hopped in to help my sister with something, if you're wondering, and I was just like, oh my god! She's like, what? And I'm like, can you see me? Like, just to make sure I wasn't saying that. Can you see me? No? Okay, walk towards me. And I see her up here walking. Like, she's like, where are you? I'm like, okay, walk down left. Nope, left. There you go. And then she gets like way down here, and it's like, oh, there you are. She's like here on my screen, and I'm like, I can. Anyways, stupid story's over. Moving on. Talked about State of Play. I talked about FF16, Assassin's Creed, Pandemic, the What If thing. GDQ was awesome. Where we're at with LoreCraft. I think that's everything. I thought I had one last thing. Let me check my phone. It's kind of a just chatting sort of a Loreweek. What brand monitor? Of course, for once there's no logo. Oh yeah, wow. That's the last thing. Thank you. Although while I have my phone, I'll look up what monitor I have. Actually, I forgot about WoW. Take whatever amusement you want from that. Come on. Okay, what do I have? I have an LG, I think? Is that the brand name? Yeah, no, LG is apparently the brand name. I have an LG. And it is an OLED. That isn't why I got it, but I will admit I'm rather fond of OLED, admittedly. I can live without it, but it is great to see. That being said, there's one thing I don't like. This is probably the most first world complaint I've ever made in my life. OLED means that if you're in a dark part of a game, all you see is your own reflection. Which has happened several times while we're recording LoreCraft footage, because some of the areas in WoW are really dark. And I'm just staring at my own reflection, sitting there like... because it is so dark, you know? Anyways. So, let's throw up the spoiler thing. This is going to be spoilers for the current content of WoW, and let's be honest, this is going to be spoilers for WoW in general. So, spoilers for WoW. All the spoilers for WoW. I'll give you a few seconds to either leave because you don't care, or leave because you don't want to hear me rant, or leave because, you know, you don't want to be spoiled, or leave because you hate me. Let me drop the bombshell first. The most recent story development is not that bad. You're probably expecting a rant against Blizzard or WoW. You are wrong. There is a narrative going on right now, a zeitgeist narrative, that says WoW sucks and can do no right, and there's also a related tangential thing about how everyone is leaving WoW going towards FF14. It's true, Larian. It's true. Let me run through this. Let me actually pull up my own notes on this, because I actually did go off on a rant about this on Discord. So let's just look up my own thoughts on this. I'll just read my own frickin' thoughts on this, because that will help. Now, let's be clear. And no offense to anybody who likes WoW or Active Blizzard or anything like that. In my opinion, the current level of quality that World of Warcraft is putting out is no longer as high as it used to be. It is my opinion that the level and point at which I do this while narrating too, and I just kind of to reset myself really quickly. The specific point, if you were to ask me professionally, as someone who has studied WoW for the better part of a decade and has been doing a lot of WoW-related work lately, when exactly did WoW start losing its overall level of quality? I would say BFA. Now, that's not the exact point in time, because actually the exact point in time would be the last patch of Legion, which, if you watch the Legion lore run, is when their storytelling started to noticeably and demonstrably fall apart, and there's all sorts of weird and unpleasant stuff that was happening with regards to that, and that led immediately to BFA, which has had substantial problems in its own right. Now, I'm not here to rant about BFA. Let me explain what I mean by a descent in quality. One of the things that Blizzard was very much known for a long time, and isn't anymore, it's clear, is they were really big on polish. Now, I've defined polish many times. I've appreciated polish since the SNES era. Now, forgive me, let's pause for a moment. Let's talk about polish for a second. Polish is easy to define in gaming and any visual media, really. So gaming, television, and movies. It's easy to define polish because polish is the stuff that isn't necessary. Think about Super Mario Brothers 1 for a second. Not the original, but you know, it's dun 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 dun. Think about that for a second. Now, I want you to mentally picture that first stage, because you could probably picture it in your head right now. And I want you to wipe all of the graphics that are on screen away and replace it. So you've got the floor, which is just a brown block. And then you've got the background, which is just a blue block. Then you've got like a green square that's Mario. Everything that you can interact with is then either one of three colors. It's an enemy, so it's a red square. It's a object you can jump on top of but not affect, like a pipe. So that's a green square. And it's something you can interact with, like, you know, a block that you can punch, or a question mark. That's a blue square. You with me so far? Now, I know this is a bit of a step, but I think this is necessary to understand, because if we wipe away all polish, you start to understand the value and purpose of polish. Because that's what Super Mario Bros. Is. If you rip out all of the graphics of that game and all of the extra stuff that isn't necessary, all you're left with is a square bouncing around. And you're probably, some of you who've played a lot of Flash games are probably thinking, I've played that game, because I have too. There's a lot of people who got their start in game design, either in Flash games or in indie games, by making a bunch of squares that jump around in a bunch of other squares, focusing on the stuff they had to, not to stuff they didn't. You with me? So that's polish. All that stuff that isn't necessary. All of that extra stuff. Final Fantasy VI is one of the earliest games I really noticed polish in. Now, that seems like a strange one to point out, but I bring it up because anybody who played the really older RPGs, like the old PC RPGs like Wizardry, or the old NES RPGs, or even the original SNES RPGs, knows everything that was there was necessary, not counting graphic stuff, obviously. In short, there were no excess NPCs. There was never a house that was just there to be a house, because they had to be efficient about what they had and what they could do. The idea of having a town where there's a little side section where you can go over and it's just there to add polish was insane to me at the time. It was the first time I really noticed that type of thing. So being able to interact with parts of the game that weren't necessary added to my enjoyment, and that was the first time I noticed that as, I guess I would have been a teenager at that point. I was like, oh my gosh, because even FF4, aka FF2 on the SNES, still didn't have a lot of that, right? Let's get back to Blizzard. Blizzard games ooze polish. It's their hallmark. If you were to sit down and think, yeah, no kidding, Dakota. If you were to sit down and list the things that make a Blizzard game, polish should be number one on that list. Going all the way back to Warcraft 2. They put so much extra everything everywhere. They would finish the base design, and then they would iterate and iterate and iterate and just add stuff. Yeah, there's a reason I still use the term doodads, which is a Blizzard term, by the way, to describe that concept, is because they were the ones who invented, well, they invented that term. They didn't invent the concept, obviously. And they're the ones who were the examples of doodad utilization for years. All right, so polish, right? Let's fast forward to BFA. Is the core meat of BFA that bad? Not really, if we're being honest. There are some severe core issues with BFA. Losing the artifact, I do still think was a bad move, but replacing it with the Azurite gear was a terrible move. And I think that they made several mistakes with regards to the global cooldown change. Not in the fact that they put stuff on the global cooldown itself, but the specifics of how they implemented it. But the dungeon design was still good. There were still good quests. There was still a lot of good story beats. There was still great character. BFA had a ridiculous amount of voice acting. That was good. You know, there's still a lot of good to BFA, but what was BFA lacking? And because I've prefaced this so badly, you already know exactly what I'm about to say. Water break. BFA was at the time one of the most unpolished Blizzard products I'd ever seen. It had seams showing everywhere. And I can't even summarize for you because it's just hundreds and hundreds of little things that it's like, why is that there? And you could see this graphic is buggy, and this quest is overloading on this other quest, and this dialogue has a freaking typo in it. And this voice acting is off, and the audio balance of this thing is off, and this music isn't playing at the right time. There was just issues everywhere. And a lot of the structure of some of their specific content was a little bit lacking compared to earlier with regard to polish. Then we get to Shadowlands. Is Shadowlands good? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But as I was playing and leveling through Shadowlands, even though the core quest design was still good, it was so lacking in that polish, even compared to BFA. And it was strange to see. And we kept walking into... It wasn't samey. It was... Because, again, the core gameplay is great. And that... Well, that's... let me walk that back. There are still core elements of design that are great. There's still good dungeon design. There's still good boss design. There's still great raid design. And the questing itself is good. But then there's moments where it's just like... What? And it's hard to explain without going into specifics because, again, it's not like a broad sweeping thing. That's why I spend so much time describing polish. It's because it's this thing, and 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 this thing. I've actually already gone on a rant about WoW. I want to say 2 weeks ago? So let's catch up to the latest stuff. One of the things that happened is there were 2 cutscenes that came out in the recent patch. One of them has to do with Sylvanas Windrunner. The other one has to do with Garrosh Hellscream. Now, the Garrosh Hellscream cutscene is terrible. And that is the nicest way I could put that. That is... Now, to be clear, the actual voice acting is good, and some of the ideas of the cutscene are good, but it's so lacking in polish. I'm going to link it in chat right now. It's not very long. You can mute it. In fact, I encourage you to mute it, because if you don't care, then you don't care. But just watch it. Just watch how the lip-syncing works on Garrosh. Watch at how he grabs his axe and how he... Let me zoom in to a specific thing. There's this point at which he grabs the weapon of his enemy, right? Now, Blizzard is well known for being excellent in their animation, and I want you to keep this point in mind because I'm going to bring it up in a second. But when someone goes to grab something, there's like a weight to it. I know I'm describing this so terribly, but anybody who's ever worked with animation design knows it's harder than it sounds to make it feel like that person's picking it up. Otherwise, it has no weight to it. It feels like they're just grabbing the air and moving, because that's technically what you're doing with the animation. Garrosh just kind of does this and picks it up like... I don't even know how to describe it. It looks awful. Just watch the scene. You will see what I mean. It's just... And then he does this really dumb jumping arc, which it's clear someone spent like 5 minutes designing the curve on, and then dissolves. And this cutscene is so unclear that I know some people who didn't realize that what happened was Garrosh detonated into soul ash, which is what happens, by the way. Yeah, like styrofoam. That's a good way to put that. And it's just... It looks like a PS1 cutscene. Now, that sucks. Let's just start with that. But core content is still interesting and still kind of follows a trend and still has some story beats and yada yada. So, hey, lack of polish. Let's talk about the one everyone else is talking about. The big cutscene. So after you beat the raid, you get a cutscene. It's much better animated, first of all. Let me go ahead and say that. Way better animated. Where Sylvanas is like, aha, I have won. And the jailer, we'll call him Bob for now. Bob pulls out the essence of the Arbiter, claims it for himself, turned into this big, wonderful new thing, and is like, aha, I am no evil. And then he says, oh, now everyone everywhere will serve me. Sylvanas then, how do I phrase this? Sylvanas quits. Sends in her resignation. That's actually a better way to put that. I'm not memeing. Sylvanas quits. She sends in her resignation to the jailer. And, excuse me, to Bob. And Bob is like, oh, well, very well. Then I will do this weird thing that some players don't even understand what's happening. And then I will leave. Now that probably sounds like crap. let me go ahead and start by saying that my biggest complaint about Shadowlands' story so far is the fact that the jailer is astonishingly boring. He is... you know what, I'm not going to say what I think he is, because the honest answer is I have no idea what they're going for here. He is so boring. Sargeras, who I want to stress has been seen once ever. He's been hurt a few times, but he's only been seen once ever in the whole series. Still had more characterization and was still more fleshed out and developed and interesting than the jailer is. So, the jailer is really, really, really boring. With me so far? I bring that up because that is my biggest complaint with the cutscene. However, the jailer is still in character and consistent. Now, I will have to point out that, you know, he is obviously... Some people think that they're trying for a Sauron-type character, and I don't think they are. The whole point of a Sauron-type character is they don't have screen time. They don't show up. Their presence is felt. It's close to being an environmental threat, right? So you're not supposed to see Sauron all that often. You're just supposed to feel the impact of him, so that when he does show up, it has all the more impact. But you have to develop him off camera for that type of archetype to work, right? They don't do that with the jailer. He not only does he get plenty of character time and plenty of screen time, but he likes to go on just random rants. And most of his dialogue is incredibly generic. All worlds will burn, and I will destroy everything. He was worthless to me, but soon I shall claim this thing and blah, blah, blah. No. If I was to speculate, I would say the jailer is a mystery box. For those of you not familiar with this concept, I am borrowing this term from J.J. Abrams. The mystery box is a type of narrative trope where you have something that's supposed to be built up as a mystery. It's like, oh, what's going on? What is it? What's his motives? Where's he from? And they give little hints to try and develop this mystery. Now, whether or not a mystery box works depends entirely on the payoff. That's not true. Like 90% of it is about the payoff. The other 10% is the build-up. So they have to do good build-up. I will admit they have been doing a decent amount of build-up for the jailer, so credit where credit is due. But the problem is, so far, and I want to stress that we are now a full content patch into this expansion, so far there have been 0 answers. Nothing. So we're still at the build-up phase. That's another key point. The more you build up, the worse it gets. See Lost, for probably the best example, is the TV show Lost. There's a certain point in time in which you have to stop building up and you have to start paying off. Because not only is expectation going to keep going up essentially forever, the more you build it up, and at a certain point you are going to screw up and you're not going to live up to expectation, but also the fact that at a certain point in time people are going to stop caring. If you just keep teasing and teasing, people like being teased. And then you do it too much. I mean, it's true. I'm telling you, the 80-20 rule is a universal constant. It's a good way to put that way out. The mystery box is alone. You can't hold on to it too long, and it has to pay off appropriately. So far, I think they have already built this up too much with the jailer. My problem. My first problem with this. Because, again, we're not only all the way through, launch content, which is a huge chunk of content, but we're already through most of a major content patch, and there has still been no payoff whatsoever. So that's the jailer. Boring. And again, I actually know people personally who have gotten to the point already of no longer caring about what the payoff is because, okay, you got anything? And that is my biggest complaint about this cutscene right there. The fact that there was no payoff for the jailer, and the fact that the cutscene ends on a to be continued. Which, by the way, spoilers, the cutscene ends on a to be continued. There's no real payoff for Sylvanas either. And that's the other problem. Having said that, I have seen people, in fact, I saw an article in PC Gamer, for God's sakes, where several people just started going off on huge, massive rants, multi-page long rants, about how this is the worst cutscene in the game. And those people are idiots. I shouldn't say those people. Let me walk that back a bit. That person who wrote that PC Gamer article is an idiot. Ignoring the fact that they were actually factually wrong on a lot of the little points they were making. But his whole overall point, I think it was a he, whoever wrote the article, their overall point was this whole bit about how, well, Sylvanas is redeemed now, and this is stupid, and she's grown a conscience for stupid reasons. And it just really, really emphasized to me one of the biggest problems WoW has, and that's the fact that it doesn't know how to tell its story. Let me explain to you what happens in this cutscene. And I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to anyone, but near as I can tell, most people literally don't understand what's going on in this cutscene. I'm scrolling up to my notes here on Discord, because I paused. I was so angry about this that I actually paused at a certain point in time from working to rant about this on Discord. Not rant about the cutscene, rant about all the people who were wrong. And that particular article. Hear me out. And again, I'm just going to read my own thoughts here specifically. Sylvanas died in Warcraft 3, spoilers, and was brought back to serve the first Lich King. Now, it needs to be emphasized that the specific method the first and second Lich Kings control you is like a player controlling units in a video game, an RTS game. That unit can do things independently, but not really, and it has to do whatever it's told. If I target this unit and tell them to walk into that lava, they have to. That is the style and method of control the first and second Lich Kings employ. It is total control over everyone at the same time. You with me so far? That's important. Now, the first Lich King's control was loosened in Frozen Throne for reasons we're not going to go into, and Sylvanas immediately rebels against this, along with the people who would eventually be known as the Forsaken. Now, she and they really hate being mind-controlled, as most people would, and this is in addition to the fact that Sylvanas personally was forced to kill and convert her friends and family on top of everything else. Now, everything she did, okay? Hang on, sorry, rewind. The first time she died, she was sent to the afterlife. Now, we're not sure where she went exactly. Maybe it was Bastion, I don't know. But she went someplace nice. And then she was ripped back and put under this horrific mind control state. You with me so far? This is all important to establish her goals. Sylvanas' entire goals are 2 points. That's true, Dakota. Point number 1. Kill Arthas. Or rather, kill the Lich King. Revenge, in other words. And point 2, die. Now, that's very important, because everything she does in Frozen Throne, WoW Vanilla, WoW BC, and Wrath are all specifically focused on this singular thing. She doesn't care about anything else. That is Sylvanas' characterization. You with me so far? She is focused on her goals to the point where nothing else matters. So all that she does doesn't matter to her. If she makes a mess of things, who cares, as long as she accomplishes what she's after. That is Sylvanas' characterization, and that is consistent. So, this then leads to Wrath. The second Lich King is defeated. Spoilers. Sylvanas immediately, within minutes, commits suicide. Here's the problem. Having accomplished Goal 1 and Goal 2, she goes on to the Afterlife, except now she goes to the Maw. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this very quickly. The Maw is basically hell. Metaphorical hell. Blizzard, actually, ironically, is really good at visually and audibly presenting hells, hellscapes or places that are metaphorical hell. We've seen this in Diablo, we've kind of seen this in StarCraft, and we have absolutely seen this in WoW. The Maw is one of the most horrible hells I've seen. It's not the worst, but it's up there. It's pretty bad. So Sylvanas is now in the Maw. That sucks. The jailer decides to go ahead and reach out to her to make her a deal. Jailer recruits her. Now she has a new goal. Remember, all Sylvanas cares about is her goals, so everything she does in purpose of those goals is acceptable. Now you're probably thinking, oh, her goal is to do whatever the jailer wants her to do, right? No. What Sylvanas wants to do is to break this whole thing, this whole system. Because in her mind, the whole system as a core aspect is broken. The system of death and the afterlife is what I'm referring to. The mechanisms of the afterlife and death and yada yada. That, in her mind, is broken. This actually pretty consistently explains everything that she's been doing since WoW Kata, which was right after this incident, WoW Pandaria, WoW Warlords, WoW Legion, WoW BFA, WoW Shadowlands. Now, yes, Dakota, although they haven't got into how yet. But yes, it is an infinite growth, which has its own problems. Now I'm going to pause a moment here, because Mad Overlord points out something that is important to note, and this is another reason why this cutscene does not suck as much as people say it does. The Maw is hell because the jailer wishes it to be. So anybody who's ever actually looked into Forgotten Realms, I myself did an entire lore run on Neverwinter, where I discussed the lore of the Forgotten Realms. No, some Skara guy. I'm describing the recent WoW cutscene for people who don't actually know the lore. Kind of my job. So, where was I? Forgotten Realms. The way it works is the way that their... Yeah, we talked about the Walla. The way that their dimensions work, the way that their particular planes of existence work, is entirely dependent on the deity of that dimension. They shape it. They're directly connected to and attached to it, right? So the reason that the Verdant Fields are that way, or the reason that Ardenweald is that way, or the reason that Maldraxxus is that way, is because the Eternal connected to each of those places has willed it to be such. Now, this is important because this is effectively one of the only bits of characterization we get for the jailer. Cruelty. This is the same thing that we had in Thy End of Line, for example. Yes, I did. Thank you very much. As ever and as always. Much appreciated. Give me a moment. I will interrupt myself to write that down. Towards dealer choice. You got it. It's a method for control. Possibly. Again, mystery box. So we're not actually 100% sure on that one because they're just being stupid. Thank you, I drink from him. Very, very much. I'm glad you like the YouTube side of things. Much appreciated. If you know where you want to put that, please let me know. Yes, anybody who's familiar with Elder Scrolls lore, that's another good example. The reason that their Planes of Oblivion are the way they are is because of the Daedric Lord who is in charge of it. It is an aspect of them, and they shape it. So, the jailer is cruel. Cool, that's important. Now let's skip forward a little bit. So, Sylvanas goes along with the jailer because she feels like he's the only in she has to someone who actually wants to change the system, the mechanisms of death and the afterlife. Dragon Age 2, you got it. That is her goal. She doesn't care about whatever he's after, and he has not revealed to her what he is actually after, which we'll talk about in just a second. So, everything she's after, I'm with it. All of this makes perfect sense so far. This brings us to the current cutscene. Now what happens is the jailer grabs the artifact, as I described earlier, and thereby declares his new goal. What is his new goal? To forcibly mind control everything, everywhere, simultaneously. Sound familiar? Because this is why I bothered to explain how the first and second Lich Kings operated. It's the same concept, it's just on a much larger scale. He wants to have that direct RTS control over everyone. Now remember, that is the thing Sylvanas hates the most. It's the line for her. Burning the tree and killing thousands of innocents, why does she care? They don't matter to her. Or massacring people, or torturing people, or whatever, that's just whatever. But mind control is a line for her because of what she's been through. This is why this is the point where Sylvanas puts in her resignation. And the reason I keep putting that out there is because of the fact that she doesn't defy... Some people think that she should have actually attacked him. She doesn't. She fires a single arrow at him because this is a sign of the fact that she is now defying him. She knows she can't kill him, especially not right now, and she's got no backing, and most of her power comes from him. She can't beat him. So instead, all she does is hand in her resignation. One arrow to show that I will not submit to that. That is one thing I will not accept in service of my goals. That is in character and consistent with what Sylvanas has been since all the way back in Warcraft 3. This then leads to the jailer being... What's the thing that he does? What's the one characterization we have for the jailer? Actually, it's two. There are two bits of characterization we have for the jailer. Cruelty and domination. I mean, chains of domination, the helm of domination, his frickin' ability is domination. But we've already discussed the domination thing. The important characterization is he is sadistic. Cruelty. So what does he do? Well, the first thing he does is he rips out a soul and shoves it right back into her. Congratulations, you can feel everything now. Have fun! And the next thing that happens immediately after that is he goes ahead... it's just inconsistent writing, Thartic. I have no... If you're asking me to justify BFA, you're looking in the wrong place. Shoves her soul back into her. And then, rather than killing her or hurting her or whatever, we're not sure, Micromono. Mystery box. Shoves a soul back in so she can feel now. And then leaves her with Thrall, Jaina, and us. The people who most hate her and want to hurt her. Sylvanas' final... Oh, and Bolvar there. Bolvar certainly is not really fond of her either. But yes, Bolvar is also there too. I wasn't even going to mention him. So now, she is at our tender mercies. Cruelty. The final bit of the cutscene is her falling over from something. And being like, oh, he must not thakunk. Yeah, Tyranda's missing because, honestly, let's not even go into the Tyrande stuff. If you want me to rant about the things that WoW has been doing bad, let's talk about Tyrande. Yeah, honestly, the vibe I got from it is shock. Blizzard actually does a lot of visual storytelling in their animation. So... Anyway, so she falls over, thunk. As she's falling over, she tries to tell something to the viewers, and she sucks at it. Because... mystery box. Now, I've already said this, but to reiterate my point, that is the biggest flaw of the episode, of the cutscene right there. It doesn't answer anything. It teases, and it teases, and it teases, and then she falls over, to be continued. And I gotta be honest, that pissed me off. And yeah, she played the pronoun game, and, you know, she passed out right when she was about to get across, you know, can't spit it out, I believe is what we call that particular trope. Whatever. I've already complained about that. But I wanted to really... No, Arcus, when would I have time? I wanted to really go through each beat of that cutscene to explain why it's not that bad. It's not great. Again, they're teasing too much, the jailer's disinteresting, and it ends on a to be continued. But the fact that people have been absolutely blowing up over this cutscene... That's what disappoints me. I don't have a better way to put that. The fact that people have been looking at this cutscene and just been like, this is the worst thing ever. This is her being redeemed. No, it isn't. If Sylvanas does end up helping us against the jailer, it won't be because she's a good guy. It won't be because she suddenly magically had a change of heart. It'll be because screw him. The amount of people who have been completely failing to understand this cutscene, and God, that sounds so elitist, but I don't have a better way to put it, because a lot of people have been demonstrably misunderstanding this cutscene and just going off on huge tangents about how terrible this cutscene is, and I just look at that like, but... And as I feel like I just described, it is quite consistent, well animated, and is a natural, logical next step for the story for both the jailer and Sylvanas. Now, that is still WoW's fault. What's the biggest reason why I'm doing the World of LoreCraft series? Because the lore, well, convoluted's not the right way to put it. Because the lore is poorly presented, is how I would phrase that. Yeah, to tell the story that Blizzard can't. WoW has so much good narrative to it, so much good story to it, and it is all over the place, told out of order, and a decent chunk of it is actually out of the game itself. So, I can't. That's why I say this is still WoW's fault. And this is probably one of the reasons why some people are starting to make the shift from WoW to FF14, because of all the things FF14 does wrong, which is a lot, by the way. One of the things that FF14 does correctly is it tells its story well and in the game. I've never encountered someone who has been at a certain... I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there's never been a point at which someone sees a plot development for a character and actually asked, who's that guy? But I have seen that several times for WoW. Who's this person? Because WoW's story is just all over the... It doesn't help that significant and relevant beats of WoW's story are in books, comics, and short stories. One of the most important bits of world building for the way that the undead system works and the nature of the Helm of Domination is in a short story on World of Warcraft's website. That's not a joke. It's the one from the perspective of the Knights of the Ebon Blade, when it's happening during the fight between Bolvar and Sylvanas during the intro. It's a great short story, and it's great story. It is great narrative, and it also, I have to admit, is the kind of thing that I find very satisfying, because it proved me right about 6 separate points I made during the lore run. And every single one of those points, people in chat were like, oh, no, you're wrong. You're just making that up. No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. But anyways. Nevertheless, the point I'm trying to make is that that's a freaking short story on a website. So it's not like... and I want to stress this point. It's not like I'm giving Blizzard a pass here. Lately, I've started calling this the Hitler wears pink argument. Hear me out for a second. Hitler sucks, right? I think we could all get on board with that. Hang on a second. Hang on. Hey, Blue. Does Hitler suck? Okay, cool. Hitler sucks. We're cool. We're cool. Blue has confirmed. But I want you to imagine for a moment that someone walked up and said, you, pointing to Hitler, Hitler wears pink! And he sucks because he wears pink! And they start focusing on the fact that he wears pink, and they start focusing on the fact that the pink is the problem, and that's terrible and awful and it's horrible. And I know this is a terrible analogy, but whatever. I haven't come up with a better one. This is the sort of argument I've started noticing this more and more in general cultural zeitgeist. But I've noticed this a lot when it comes to Blizzard, because a lot of people will point to something Blizzard is not doing wrong, or something they're not doing incorrect, or something that that they are factually wrong about, as I pointed out earlier, and say, that is why Blizzard sucks, and that's why WoW sucks. And I'm like, but they're not wearing pink! You want to be upset at WoW, go for it! I'm upset at WoW. If you want to be upset at Actiblizzard, go for it. They suck! But focus on what they're actually doing that's wrong. Not the fact that they're wearing pink, because they're not! They're not wearing pink. I'm sorry. You can hate pink all you want. Go for it. I don't care. That's the rant, by the way. I told you I'd probably rant, and I successfully managed to tilt into rant territory there. This is why this has been pissing me off so much, because I troll a lot of news sites because Loreweek, right? And I go down the list, you know, and there's just been this cavalcade of people who are like, Blizzard's wearing pink, and I'm like, no, they're not. And the double irritation, if I could just rant one more second, the double irritation is that I point out, well, hang on, Blizzard isn't wearing pink, and people immediately, not you guys, because you look at it awesome, but people will tend to immediately leap on me saying, Oh, you're just defending Blizzard despite the fact that they're horrible. No, I'm not. I'm pointing out the fact that they're not wearing pink. By the way, I love that. I love that idea. I want you to look at the idea of looking at a bottle of Pepto-Bismol and just shaking with rage. Yeah, that's a good idea, Mike. I'm going to jot that down so I don't forget that. Blizzard doesn't wear pink. Blizzard doesn't wear pink. And everyone's going to misunderstand that, but it's okay. They'll have to watch for context. Die, pink! So hang on. Because I actually got asked another WoW question about recent content. I can't remember it right now, forgive me, but Zlartic just asked, opinion on the Tyrande and Sylvanas cutscene. I actually did hear about that, Mad Overlord. I haven't looked into it, though. Allow me to ask you a question in return, Zlartic. Are you familiar with Worf Effect? Now, the Worf Effect, I'm just going to describe it in case anyone in chat is not familiar. Worf Effect is a concept where you establish usually a character, but it can be a faction or a ship or whatever, as big and strong, right? They're the tough ones. And then as a narrative shorthand, you have someone else show up and beat them up and just effortlessly crush them. And in so defeating them, you have now established the new person, right? Now, that by itself is not necessarily wrong. That's called establishment. That's called negative establishment. It's like negative space. Same concept. You establish a character by establishing another character. It doesn't become Worf Effect until you do this regularly and badly. But when you do it in a way that doesn't make sense, or a way that is literally just being done to establish a threat of the week, right? That's why it's called Worf Effect, because Worf is an extremely combat-capable, well-trained Klingon who practices martial arts daily and is supposed to be one of the best shots, as in accuracy, in the entire fleet. And yet every episode, in order to help establish the threat of the week, they would always throw around Worf. That way you'd know things were serious, right? That's misuse, by the way. Allow me to describe now this series of cutscenes, because it's not just the fact that Tyrande fought Sylvanas. No, it actually goes back to someone can't think of his name. Sylvanas' lover. I cannot think of his name. I can see his face, I can hear his voice, but I can't think of the damn jackass. Nathanos, thank you, Nathanos. God, couldn't think of his name. So what happens is during the launch event for Shadowlands, we had a raid fight against Nathanos, right? I actually don't know if you can still do this, but point is, you fight him, and he's a pretty hard fight, and he can one-shot people and blah, 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 right? What then happens is they then show a cutscene of him effortlessly killing us. Now, we've been to space, and I know that's kind of a meme, but I want to stress, especially going through the LoreCraft series, the list of accomplishments we have accomplished is not small. So we are being Worfed by Nathanos. You with me? Nathanos is just effortlessly killing us. What then happens is Tyrande... So there's Worf number one. What then happens is Tyrande shows up and, this is important, effortlessly defeats Nathanos. So, if you're paying attention, that is now Worf number 2. So now we've established Tyrande, because she's super amazing. Hang on. Now, just as a quick aside, because I don't like to criticize without critiquing, it would be so easy to solve this and fix this. All you'd have to do is say that we managed to basically defeat Nathanos, and he's on the verge of death because we beat him, and then Tyrande shows up and kill steals. Right? There you go. Fixed. Done. Anywho, so, I mean, I could go into more details and specifics, but none of you want to hear that. I mean, I could storyboard the whole scene in my head. Point being, we could make that work, but they didn't. So instead, we get Worfed, then he gets Worfed. Let's fast forward to the recent cutscene. In the recent cutscene, Tyrande ends up fighting Sylvanas. Tyrande loses to Sylvanas. Now, there's actually another wrinkle to this. But if you actually watch the cutscene, you will know what I mean when I say this is another example of Wharf effect, because what happens is Tyrande, we are establishing how much of a threat and how dangerous Sylvanas is by the fact that she more or less effortlessly defeats Tyrande. There's even a bit where Tyrande has her by the neck, and then Sylvanas is just like, nah, you've lost your power. Not explained. And then just kind of is like, yep, nope, you're good. This is Wharf effect, and that's what sucks about that cutscene. However, the cutscene does do exactly two things correctly, I will say. And I will give the... Because again, credit where credit is due. That's always my thing. Even if I dislike something, I want to point out the things it does right. I think it does right, number one. Sylvanas has been unaware of Nathanos' fate. Now that's important because that's actually the second crack in Sylvanas' faith in the fact that the jailer is dealing with her at level. The first crack was Anduin, if you're paying attention. So that's two cracks now. That helps to establish why, when he crosses the line, she's willing to go ahead and spit in his face, metaphorically speaking. The second thing, let's use 2 fingers instead of 3. Second thing that the scene does correctly is when the scene ends, there's actually a really great point where Ysera comes in, or Ysara, they actually pronounce it 3 different ways in the game. It's gonna suck to try and figure out how to pronounce that when I get to Legion. Ysara shows up, Sylvanas leaves, and Ysara is like, oh my god, Tyrande, and the voice acting there helps to sell the fact that Tyrande is basically losing herself to this whole Night Warrior thing. It is probably the only thing that's actually a decent or interesting aspect of Tyrande's character, because by god, I could just rant so hard about how much they are screwing up Tyrande's character. I said I wouldn't, so I won't. But the fact that she's on her way out and needs saving from herself, okay, I can kind of go with that. That's it. Those are the good parts of that cutscene. We got Wharfed. Malfurion's back in the realm of the living, Omega Legion. Tyrande did have a character in Warcraft 3. That's basically the problem. Tyrande has had screen time in almost every cutscene. Every single cutscene sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Has had screen time in cutscenes or in gameplay in almost every expansion across all of WoW. And in all that time, she has had 0 characterization, 0 character arc, 0 development. That's my problem with Tyrande in a nutshell. WoW does a thing, and trust me, the LoreCraft series has really been making this obvious, where they will pick and choose like 5, 8, or 10 characters. We did quite that is correct. 5, 8, or 10 characters and say, you're the characters who are getting developed this expansion, right? This is really obvious at times. You know, Khadgar, Illidan, and Velen in Legion, or Lor'themar Theron, who's been around since BC, suddenly getting characterization in Pandaria, for example. Stuff like that. Now, that's fine. It's not ideal, if I'm being honest, but I can at least see why they do that. These are the characters we're going to focus on this expansion. The problem is, the characters who don't get focused usually just get pushed off to the background and just get to sit there in the background doing nothing. But they haven't been doing this with Tyrande. She keeps having screen time for some reason, and no development. Now, Maverick made a joke earlier. Tyrande has a character, but let's be clear, Tyrande doesn't have a character. At least not in WoW. That's the problem. Now, it feels like this whole Night Warrior thing has been an effort and attempt to finally add character to Tyrande. And it's been failing at it, because so far, I'll go ahead and summarize the Night Warrior arc for you. You hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you, no matter the cost. That's it. Now, I hate to continue to hammer this point in, but that arc started in BFA. So we've got 2 expansions of revenge and nothing else. It cannot be this hard to write a character. I know you can do it, Blizzard. A lot of your characters are very engaging and interesting. A lot of your they have a concept I call zone characters, which is a character that's with you for like a single zone arc. And that's it. You know, they're there for that zone and then they go away. A lot of WoW's zone characters are awesome. The Han Solo stand-in BFA, I can't think of his name, forgive me, but you probably know what I'm talking about, who was part of the Tiergard Sound story arc. Flynn, that's him. Flynn, great character. Amusing, engaging. We've got, I can't think of her name. Oh god, I can't think of anyone's names today. Hang on, I'm gonna look this up real quick. I want to get there before you tell me, for once. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go, Pandaria. Lillian Voss. Now, Lillian Voss has been kind of interesting, because she was a character back in Kata, across the Tirisfal Glades. But even just there, she was engaging enough, this is true, she was so engaging and people were so interested in her story that they brought her back. She became a recurring character because people liked her so much. And she actually had a pretty good arc in BFA, as, let's be honest, being the new leader of the Forsaken. I know everyone says Callie is the new leader of the Forsaken, but I mean like the metaphorical, you know, the shepherd of the Forsaken, right? The face of the Forsaken. That's Lillian Voss at this point. So, yeah! Cool! So what the hell are you doing with Tyrande? And why is she... And I Drink From a Ham also points out the other obvious problem here. Revenge is not a character. That's a bullet point. You can build an interesting character off of Revenge. You could flesh Revenge out into other things, but if your only character note is Revenge, you don't have a character. You have a cardboard box. Insert Metal Gear Solid joke here. Anyways, rant off. So you see my point. It's not like Blizzard is perfect, and it's not like WoW is perfect. They're screwing up plenty of things. They're just not wearing pink. Hell, I gotta be honest, Thomas Zelling is actually a perfect example of a zone character. I bet most of you don't even know that name, and that's fine. No judgment. Thomas Zelling was a character back in BFA who was a human, who was a Tide Sage. He was killed by us, and then ripped back up to be a Forsaken. And he had this whole character arc, which was basically... It was a really zoomed-in look on what it means to be Forsaken. And what it means to be ripped back from death in order to be an undead, and how he coped with that, and how he coped with his family and the loss of his family. His family ends up rejecting him because he's undead. Which, I gotta be honest, I'm pretty sure my family would be tolerant and loving enough to understand if I became undead and still had my brain and you know, was still a functional person. But his family apparently sucked because they rejected him. His family was like the Thing's wife. You remember that? In the second Fantastic Four movie? Oh, you're made of rock now. I'm gonna run out to this bridge and put the engagement ring on the bridge because I am a horrible human being. Seriously, who does that? That was such a bullcrap move. She ditched him. She had to run out to the bridge to ditch him immediately after he performed heroics to save lives, too. Anyways. You... Yeah. Point being, wow, I bring up Thomas Zelling and Flynn very specifically, though, because both of them are post-Metzen, and both of them are BFA, which I generally consider to be not a particularly good expansion. And yet, even despite being in BFA, they still did good characters. So what the hell are you doing with Tyrande? And the Jailer, for that matter. What are you doing, Blizzard? Oh, well, have faith and wait. I've heard that before. If you remember, at the very beginning of BFA, one of the first things that happens was they burned... Oh, BFA, easy answer, Omega Legion. One of the first things they did... what, Yrel? Giant rat guy? One of the first things they did in BFA was they burned the tree. Remember that? And there was a huge outrage about it, myself included. Because while they weren't wearing pink, they had burned a tree, and I was upset about them burning the tree. So everyone was pissed about this, and one of the biggest things they kept saying was, hey, it's okay, have faith. Have faith, bear with us. It's okay. No. BFA's over now. You didn't land it. It didn't work. You still suck. But I'm getting off topic. What do I think of Garrosh's final death in Chains of Domination? Rewind the bot. I already talked about it. It's a dumb scene. There's the summary. Now, if they burned the tree while wearing pink, oh, we're gonna have some words then. Yeah, the jailer. I can't say the jailer has no characterization. He does have exactly 2 bullet points. I already told you both of them. Domination and cruelty. But other than that, that makes him better than Tyrande, who has 1 bullet point. Revenge. That's sad. Moving on. I'm done ranting. I apologize for the rant. I look forward to getting lots and lots of downvotes and people telling me I'm wrong because I ranted about WoW again. That happened last time. I thought about deleting that VOD because I was sick of it. I didn't. It's still there. Let's jump off the local recording.